back here. Media availability is done for this week. Obviously, the big news this week is 2 players transferring, another player off the team. One of those players was an important member of this defense.
Yeah, Aaron Maddox, started the first 3 games of this season, and missed a couple games with that leg laceration, and surprising to all of us, just because last week. He was at the media luncheon, spoke on Tuesday. He also spoke on Monday. It was kind of one of those weird weeks that he actually spoke twice last week. But, he seemed all on board and ready to go. And he had returned the previous week on a limited role. But, I was surprised. I mean, he's just a guy you and I have talked about, one of our favorite guys to talk to. He really always seems upbeat. But something happened between Tuesday and Friday to where they decided to part ways.
The timing of it seems a little strange, like you mentioned. We had talked to him twice last week. But on the other hand, it makes sense. He's played in 4 games this year. If he played in 1 more, he would not be able to redshirt this year.
Right.
Based on what we understand, it was a situation where he wanted to know that he was definitely going to get a lot of playing time down the stretch. And if you're Mel Tucker, Darrion is playing really well. I saw Pro Football Focused. I had him grade out as, the best grade any CU defensive backs had all season, so a tough situation for Tucker to be in. And I don't know if you really want to set that precedent. You start guaranteeing things to players when you got to put the team first, really, if you want to have a successful program.
Yeah, you do. And it's not that this was an opportunity for him, not an opportunity, but this was an example of him making an example out of Aaron and saying, no, this is our program, this is how it's going to go, you've got to earn your playing time. Aaron had done that early in the season, but at this point, Mikhail Onu obviously has been one of the best players on that defense all year, and then Darrion Rickshaw, like you mentioned, played very well and has had pretty good moments as well. So, those are the 2 guys, actually that's your top 2 interceptors this season. They've got 6 between them. You got to go earn that spot. So to have a guy come in and say, can you guarantee me this? You can't let that happen.
After the news broke, I had a bunch of people on Twitter come at me like, what's going on with all this secondary attrition? Hassan Hippolyte, had he straight on the straight and narrow, you would have liked to see him. He was a physical, good player.
Yeah.
Obviously, Aaron Maddox would have been nice to have in this program, would have been a front runner to start next year.
Yeah.
But aside from those 2 guys, none of those other secondary guys that have left this program you're too concerned about in terms of they just weren't, frankly, that good.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the way things have played out, with Dante Wigley, Ronnie Blackman are guys that will probably give you some depth and maybe preserve a red shirt for a Tariq Luckett, maybe a KJ.
I don't even know if that's the case, to be honest with you.
I agree with you, but possibility. I mean, Wigley is a guy that started a bunch of games. Ronnie Blackman had experience. I'm just saying those are guys that, right now, Tariq Luckett is the backup corner at both spots, and this is a guy that's he just played his first game last week, a few snaps. So you'll at least have some depth there. But you're right. I mean, it's not like they've lost, all conference type players that have decided to move on.
L.J. Wallace, and who's the other one that I'm forgetting?
Kevin George,
a couple other guys that probably weren't going to factor in. Darrion Jones, tight end, is in the transfer portal. This will allow him to redshirt, similar to Aaron Maddox, have a senior season somewhere else.
Yeah.
He was 4th on the depth chart here. We heard Al Papunu tell Mark Johnson on the radio show last week that he might have had the most talent of any guy in that group, but just didn't have the desire to get better. And so that wasn't surprising to hear he's transferring and moving on.
Yeah, and Coach Papunu told me during fall camp, said, hey, Darrion's got NFL potential if he can put it all together, and obviously he just didn't. I mean, you look at the tight end rotation at this point, and it's been Brady Russell all year, has been the key guy, Jalen Harris for a lot of the year. Bo Bisharat now is up there and playing a lot of snaps, and they play 2 tight ends every once in a while, but not a ton. And so for Darrion Jones, I mean, at the number 4 tight end spot, he wasn't going to play a whole lot, and so for him, it makes sense. Is this the way he wants to end his college football career, or does he want to take the opportunity to go maybe play somewhere close to home or just somewhere that gives him a better opportunity to go out and just play 1 more year?
Jacob Callier is off the team. This is not the first issue he's had with this staff, and it's unfortunate for him. I think the last memory we're going to have of him is that untimely penalty at Oregon where Mel Tucker got in his face. Not surprising either.
Yeah, and there's that, and then there's the play against Nebraska that people will probably always remember. He started off so well. I mean, his very first game, he had, I think it was him and Sparacco at the end of the first half, had teamed up on the sack. Kelly looked like he was going to be a key pass rush specialist for his 4 years here, but just it didn't come together for him, and unfortunately, it was time to move on and just part ways.
In this defense, they ask their outside linebackers to be well-rounded as opposed to being kind of specialists. And McIntyre's, the defenses they ran under him, there was room for a guy that could come in there. And you're still going to specialize a little bit on defense, but it didn't seem like he was ever really going to fit in on this defense. And he had a body type where if he was going to put bad weight on it, it seemed to be bad weight. And then he got thin and didn't seem to have the ability to be a run stopper.
Yeah, he just had. You're right. He had that type of body, like a Sparacco. We've seen him put on some good weight to where he now can fit a different position. He's now playing defensive line. Callier, you just never saw that happening. I mean, you're right. I mean, you put on the weight, he wasn't going to be as effective.
Mel Tucker says it basically sets a standard here. There's a certain way things are going to be done at Colorado, and we've seen that's going to result in some attrition. You don't want it to turn into the revolving door that we saw the 2 years that John Embry was here. Yeah. They're going to need a little bit of attrition like you do every offseason to get the numbers to work, but you got to hope at this point you've kind of weeded out most of the guys that aren't fully bought in at this point.
Yeah, you hope so. I think we'll still see some, maybe in the spring as guys that maybe some guys are younger now that think they might have an opportunity next year, but don't. I just think that's the way college football is going. Is there's going to be a lot more attrition. That's one thing. We talked about it at Retro Practice that Mike McIntyre. That was one thing. He didn't lose a lot of players, but the rules in college football are different now. That transfer portal, the redshirt rule makes things a lot different. I think we're going to still see some, maybe not just because they don't want to be in this program, but just guys that, like a Ronnie Blackman. He wanted to play receiver here, and they said, "Well, you're not going to be a receiver here." Right. He wanted to go play receiver somewhere. So I think we could see some guys like that. Like
you said, it's different in college football nowadays. Yeah. So you're going to see them. Look for some guys in the portal. We don't know what positions, but there's quite a few positions that could use some reinforcement. So it'll be interesting to chart that as we go forward. It's probably not going to ever trend back in the other direction, right? I mean, player movement, this is here to stay as long as the transfer portal is in place the way it is right now.
I think so, unless it becomes something where there's just so many guys that get stuck in the transfer portal that they realize, we're seeing some guys that maybe they left for a better opportunity and that opportunity didn't come. Yeah. And so maybe some guys start to think twice as they start getting examples of those things. Hey, are you sure you want to do this? Here's examples of this guy that did it and it never worked out. So that's the only way I see this trend reversing, but otherwise it's just like the waiver wire. Just go look who's out there.
All right, we're going to be back with a preview of the USC game later. This week we're going to have the same clothes on because we're shooting these videos together, so don't judge us when you see that video.